Welcome everyone to the topic of the day remains concept of fall protection. A lot of accident occurs on the shop floor during the production process where people actually fall down from high places and it leads to serious injuries. Now these are the things that we need to discuss as to protect an employee, protect a worker from falling down and causing serious grievances thereby. So let us begin presentation. Let us tell you about what else the workplace hazard is all about it. Remember, your employer, the person who have employed you, is obligated to recognize all sort of hazard, evaluate them, and in the process try find out means to control those hazard in your workplace. Please, this is the responsibility of the company, of the organization that you're employed in. Your employer has to recognize, evaluate, and definitely control hazards. So, what is this meaning all about it? It recognizes work tasks when you are exposed to certain conditions of falling down or certain aspect where the probability of falling down is more than 50%. Streamline those tasks, segregate those tasks, define the hazard associated, control those hazards as far as possible, ensure that people are utilizing PPE, that is personal protective equipment, at all point of time. Remember, we just cannot allow a person to fall down just to get even injured or to his or her death eventuality. So making sure that everybody is trained, this is something which I keep on stressing upon. Needs to be properly groomed, needs to be properly equipped in terms of PPE, needs to be properly aware in terms of training. Fall hazard, let us understand and recognize what is a fall hazard. Falls on the same level. Look, we have a staircase out here. Absolutely a wonderful staircase. Remember, staircase is the most accident prone area both in the commercial premises and in even in your residential premises. So even though most people think fall has been from one level to another, many similar falls happen on the same floor. On the way you are walking down, you may trip down. At the same level, it might be because of the style of working, the shoe that one particular person is putting on, or definitely on the type of the floor that has been there. The type of the floor might be very slippery, maybe perhaps because it is wet, perhaps because it is of certain tiles which are very causes slippery surfaces, no friction at all. Now small stairs of comprising of 2, 3, 4, 5 steps are also part of this category. So falling from the same level, you understand there are less chances of grievous injuries, but injured a person might be. So fall from a height. Look what is happening. Look at the distance that we are looking into it. Here is the distance, just to point it to you and make it pertinent to you. Fall from a height beyond 4 feet or greater is a significant hazard for a worker, and definitely from a 15 feet under, the risk is very grievous and it might actually cause death. That is what I'm trying to tell it to you, inform you, intimate you. A fall from the same level, a fall from a difference of 4 feet, which might cause definitive hazard, but a fall beyond 15 feet is very serious, ultimately serious. And then if you look into it, I am showing certain pic just for your understanding as to what exactly is all about it. What are we having? We are to include what? We have to include protective tearing. There needs to be a rope that needs to bind the workers, at the same time give enough amount of flexibility so that he or she can perform in the work. We should inform the precarious working position that comes around it. Excessive leaning or reaching where you stretch beyond and your center of gravity moves out and you are out of your. So, what other falls can lead to? It is improper work practices and unstable structure. Look at the structure that this person is venturing into. Everything is unstructured, and even if the fall is not from a greater height, might cause a grievous injuries to the person because of the unsafe structure present out there. That needs to be understood. The improper work practice, the proper training, the lack of it should be noted down. So fall from a height, let's say what happens with what are the other factors that comes around it? Number one is a slippery hazard that comes around it. Then there is something called a trip hazard. Now what is a trip hazard? In wherein you are not in a balance, or you probably like in this particular thing, it is the machine that is moving around and it is giving a jerk action. So you probably lose the control of your coordination and you trip down. So basically, it's just the way a person walking on a flat floor often trips down altogether. So that is what these are the two things that comes in your mind. Perhaps the other thing is distraction, where there is not a focus. The person concerned falls down because the person is not focused or has lost a focus, might be engrossed in a thought, perhaps is engrossed in other viewpoints that is beyond the periphery of the vision right now. So that needs to be understood, the reason that can include the fall. A no, fall onto or into an equipment has been done shown around it on a dangerous equipment, on a dangerous chemical, which can be very hazardous, which can be very grievous, which can be very serious. It can actually lead to death also. So basically, process of pickling tanks that we talk about it, galvanizing tanks that we're looking into it, degreasing units, unguarded machinery, a major thing that comes around it is an unguarded machinery. Now we need to put in rails, I suppose. If there are rails, nothing like it. But there are certain companies who might not be putting in energized wire and electrical equipment or other. So let us understand what happens if there are holes, and we keep on drilling. Let's say a lot of construction activity will consist of drilling. A lot of petroleum or mining industry will consist of a drilling. Holes or opening through which someone can actually fall down. A gap more than 2 meters in diameters will actually lead to a horizontal person falling down onto the surface. Remember, that is what we are looking into it. A wall or a vertical surface greater than 30 meter height and 18 feet width is enough for a person to fall down altogether. 30-inch height, remember, and that's it. It might not be a very deep fall, but it is very serious as far as injuries are concerned. So unprotected vents, skylights, holes are these the common exposure. We'll talk about the excavation. Look what the person is doing around it, wherein probably he's debunking the purpose. This should not be done. He is leaning onto the products, and come what may, you never know. It might be a loss of focus. It might be a very fiery wind condition. It might lead to the person falling down altogether into the pit. So you need to understand during excavation what are present, what kind of obstacles should have been placed in. Employer must protect each employee on the edge of an excavation site 6 feet or more. 6 feet or more. Remember, a height of a full grown adult is approximately 6 feet or in the vicinity of 6 feet. We can take a ladders. Obviously, the common tools, most common transition tool for a work level. When I say work level, level one and level two, or bottom level if you're talking around it. So we need to have a staircase. Usually, what happens is this might not be the right ladder for the job. As a result, fall actuates. Then more often than not, the ladder is damaged or is unstable, or probably the person utilizing is not has been utilizing in the right fashion, that these actually leads to so kind of unwanted consequences. The secondary falls are into the new area of concerns of the employer, where probably people do not get enough weightage that there's a chance of falling. And eventualities it happen. Secondary fall occur when a worker has fallen on a where an existing medical condition is a contributory fall. Probably a person is suffering from epilepsy. Probably a person is suffering from COPD. It's a pulmonary disorder that we are talking about, chronic pulmonary disorder. So we need to understand those things. And usually people who are and at an age of 55 and beyond, absolutely 55 and beyond, actually they are prone to such kind of fall. Talking about the falls, for the medical condition that goes around it, I have already said about the diabetics, probably cardiovascular disease, probably suffering from a pain in your heart or having a heart attack. Neurological, we have spoken about the epilepsy, the bone and the joint pain that comes around it. People who might not be very weak, probably there is a loss of calcium in their bones, and it does ache. And definitely people who are not visible or who cannot see things properly, and probably fails to undermine the actual situation. So workers of underlying medical conditions fall often. Now this is what is very important that needs to be taken care of. So we need to put such things on places and times. So evaluating your fall risks. First and foremost thing, are there slips or trip hazards? First, is the surface wet? Are there slicky surfaces? Are there any oil or grease onto the surfaces? Do you have to move certain heavy objects? That itself tells me that the center of gravity might changes and you might not be very much aware of it. Is a lightning adequate? Is it properly visible? Is one of the questions that comes around it. Do you have to move from working level from one to another? We are talking about level 1, level 2, level 3, and so on and so forth. What is the location of the work? Yes, definitely. And always look into the consequences. How deep can you fall? Is it 4 feet? Is it 15 feet? Is it 30 feet? What is the effect that comes around it? So is there anything that you fall onto, and what are you onto falling? If you're falling onto a chemical, catastrophic outcomes will come out. So please avoid such kind of. Now we'll talk about how to control fault. I have already explained the various kind of fault that might actually encompasses. We'll move to the hazard controls of fall. First and foremost thing is your personal protective equipment. Please wear one. Change the way people work around is the next thing that comes around here. Isolate, if possible, isolate people from the hazard, the areas. Please have barricades in place, please have rails in place. Replace the hazard as a substitution part, and if possible eliminate it completely in terms of physical removal. Now you can cover the product. If there's a pit, you can cover it the product. If there's a height of the mountain or there's something, call it, put on rails, put on barricade. So please understand, this is where I am talking about being most effective. Remember, even personal protective equipment is all not so as effective as we are looking into it. So look at it, and I have color coded it for you to understand. Red being danger and blue means more safe. So let us talk about the hazard control. Elimination of hazard is always, remember, always the first choice of controlling a fall hazard. When you fall, it means you bring your work to a ground level, to a standstill. Many routine tasks such as changing lamp can now be done at work. See, the person who have been changing the lamp has been doing it on the ground. If you can see the ground level, and then it will be hosted up. Absolutely, the lamp will be hosted up. The cameras which have been installed might be hosted up. So he need not go up. We have the technical abilities to do such kind of activities all the way around it. So you need to have such kind of mechanisms, such kind of principles, such kind of habit, such kind of facilities towards you. Hazard control, look how the person is not actually climbing the tree to cut the tree. So it's actually working on the tools on the ground level. There is no concept of falling. In this case, the branch or even the tree might fall, not the person. You just have to ensure that the bottom area is very clean. So working from ground eliminates all risk. We'll talk about the hazard control. Part of the hazard elimination is reducing the hazard by working from an appropriate platform. Like, look at it. A person is working via the crane, and this is absolutely clear. He comes up all the top from the top, and then there is a crane that comes around which helps him, which guards him. There are proper railing facilities that is come out here. See the railing facilities that is mentioned out here. The person is very safe. So using aerial lifts, building scaffolding structures are alternative ways to working. Remember, that is what we are looking at it as far as your exposures to fall is concerned. So this is another methodologies of controlling fall hazards. Now we can have the engineering control. Remove the hazard in the workplace. Probably what you do is have a barrier. Now, if you look into it, I'll show you with my cursor where the barrier is. Now, this barrier, the moment the person moves from this level to this level, it gets closed. This gets closed. Now this will be closing altogether. So that is where the engineering facilities comes around it. The person is facing the ladder, is climbing the ladder. He is very well aware of what kind of dangers around it. But then there are person who are moving on the corridors, they might be susceptible to falls if they are not very clear. So with the engineering facility which comes around it, this door, this yellow door will never open on the right other way around. It will only close down. So you can open it this way but not this way. So the gate will open this way and but not and close this way but not go beyond the point. Now this being the point which has been discussed around here. So the hazard is controlled almost on a permanent basis. Engineering control are most desirable, most effective of controlling hazard, but believe me, it requires a presence of mind and time to implement such kind of design. We talk about the hazard control. The most common of the engineering control is the guardrail. And if this is my guardrail which comes around it, absolutely the guardrail can be temporary, can be permanent, as long as it serves the purpose of not allowing or letting a person fall down. Well and good. So it gives you. We'll talk about the control, hazard control. What do we have it? It's the point of way you cover a hole. It is that needs to be done. So there are no chances if you have dug a hole, if there is a drilling in place, always at the end of the shift cover the hole and fasten it out. So it doesn't get let off by any way. So they must be strong enough and are expected to take load twice the amount goes around it. This will enable you to prevent any sort of accidental displacement, any sort of accidental fall. Guardrail system or safety net system can also protect. So within a hole, if there is a hole out here, we can erect guards everywhere. All the guardrails can go around it as in a as to block the effect altogether. So this is what we needs to be done around it, and people will not be allowed to enter to this whole area. So this is what we go. So either we keep a lid or we guard the rail altogether, or if you can do both the things, nothing like it. So we'll talk about the administrative control. Look, what has been done is to change how you do something. Often what you behave, and it comes right from the top. The supervisor will be telling it to you. These control make the task safer and eliminate the risk altogether. Designated areas are a form of fall protection that relies on warning line, on distance to control the risk of the fall. When working on a low slope, this is what we are looking. Hazard control. Designated areas on a low scope roof must be clearly marked with a rope, must be clearly marked with a wire, must be clearly stated with a tape or chain, wherein it tells you ki no, beyond this you are taking a risk. Even if it is a calculated risk, do not take it. That is what I suggest. Anyone working outside the designated areas is subject to a normal production guideline. Hazard control, look here, it the person is being binded. There is this rope which tells around, which ties to his waist and the rope falls on this fashion and then goes by the waist. This prevents the person from falling down all together to the ground floor because he's been fastening the belt all together. At the same time, the person can carry on the work as and when on require. Remember, personal protective equipment does not eliminate the hazard, but it can definitely and obviously reduce the injury, reduce the seriousness of the accidents, all about it. Remember, a PP can be included as a fall resistant and arrest system around it. So we'll talk about the other things that comes. We have the stair rails which is being given. The stair rails are this kind of circles that comes around it, which uh, doesn't allow you to trip. We have the handrails that is there. This is a handrail altogether. We have the tread. We have the risers that tells you as to what kind of effect, and the landing effect, which is very clear. So properly constructed stairs are a common hazard also. A hazard control, they allow workers to move from a level to another. Stair must be uniform, risers, height and tread, depth between the taken care of. So there has to be a uniformity everywhere down the. Talking of the standard steer, see, basically they should be at an angle of 30 to 50, not beyond it. Beyond it becomes a little bit more tough. Have a maximum riser of 9.5 inches, a depth of a 9.5 inches. So it is absolutely square in shape, but only the length varies. Remember, only the length varies. I've been talking about the heights. Now this becomes the height and this becomes the breadth. So the length can vary, have a minimum width of 22 inches depending upon the traffic that you're looking into it and the vertical clearance thereby. Always ensure a handrail staircase. Then we're talking about the repair pit. Many vehicle repairs are maintenance. Now this is which needs to be understood. This is wrong. Repair service can present both an hazard of both fall, and you might fall on certain other stronger materials like iron, which might be nails, it might be pointed, and it can cause you grievous. So what do we go around it? This is what we have to work around it. This is a safety net that comes around. This safety net is a must. Must protection. If there are oils that needs to be falling down, if there are any other machineries or small nails or pointed object that falls down, let it fall it down. At least there will be nothing on an accident. No employee or for that water worker will fall down all through. This protects a lot from a grievous injuries. And now if we have to remove certain thing in case there are certain equipment which falls down, so you're very well aware why are you climbing down. And from time to time, I will again tell it to you, advise you that these pit needs to be cleaned and removed of all obstacles. Should be ensured that pit is approximately well lit and so forth. Now, ladder safety system are required for installing or replacing fixed ladder over 24 hours. That needs to be speaking about it. We have to ensure what is ladder safety system. How do we see that any movement from a level to another level should not result in any sort of a discomfort for the worker. One of the best methodologies is the restraint thing that comes around it. This is the restraint. This person is cleaning and you can see the fall. This might be a tall building altogether. He might be standing or cleaning it on the 22nd floor, probably on the 50th floor. Any floor, remember, any floor beyond the fifth or sixth, it is very dangerous. In fact, up to fourth floor also, people might go to the eventual death if you go around it. So it is better to have a safe working environment, have the fastening system. You should have always the fall restraint system in place, fall arrest system in place if you expect any untoward accident that comes. So, personal fall arrest system, what is PFAS that I've been talking to you in the previous slide? It's basically the angle this been the person you look at is completely fastened around here from his body. It protects the person from falling to the ground, no matter from which degree. Yes, to a certain degree, there will be jerks on the body. Yes, definitely. And if it is ergonomically suited, it will not it in all probabilities will not harm even your internal organ. Remember, personal fall arrest system are unique to the work site, unique to the task of the, and definitely your employer must embrace it after requisite training. So fall protection and feasibility, we are talking about the word feasible. Is fall always a plausible scenario or a avoidance scenario? So how do you go about it? This is what we understand. Fall protection and feasibility. Infeasible means it is impossible to perform our work while conventional fall system is working, or that it's a technologically impossible. Let's say cleaning of the glass window in a high rise thing from the outside. So how do you go about it? It needs to be very much very clearly defined as this is a hazardous position. So OSHA presume that fall protection is feasible, and I also believe they will create greater hazard at least on any of the parameters of that a person works around it. This is what we need to take into consideration. Let us tell you to the fag end of the presentation. Best practices. Number one, get all the stakeholder involved, get them to the party, get them to the training, tell them what will eventually have if you are not taking the protection system in places, what kind of injuries can have, what kind of death can have, what will be the consequences, sense them. So best practice is learn to recognize and evaluate the control, evaluate and control faults anywhere and everywhere. Look, this particular person is actually been fastening itself with, not only with the with his body but also with the machine, and that too with a chair kind of thing. It will eventually will be taking it out on the top, it will actually go on the top. So when you are injured by the fall from your work, your absence, believe me, it might impact the employer definitely, but your family, think about your family in case of serious grievous injuries happens to you. So avoid improvising. This is what we were doing about it. It is all about avoiding improvising, using the right equipment for the task. Even a fall from here this place, if this breaks down, it falls down and the person tumbles this way, so what will happen? It might have a life changing impact altogether. Remember, prevent displays. Don't show your, don't become a hero altogether. This is something which is not done. Everyone likes to have fun, but not at the consequences of getting yourself injured. Please avoid displaying your valor, displaying your courage, and having any kind of misadventures altogether. Remember, criminal charges can result, it it can result in death, can result in permanent disability. Watch out for the weather. This is one of the things that what happens, wherein everybody comes around it, be it a very stormy weather, be it a very windy weather, be it is very snowy weather, it's heavily snowing. So how do you move around it? Things become much slippery then and there. So move material very safely. This is the right weather to move your materials. Look how this gentleman is doing, and he might be moving a tons of a material, but moving very slowly and steadily with the wheels around the on the containers. So lifting and moving items definitely increases your risk for fall. So use a cart, powered industrial trucks, use everything which is ergonomically suitable to you. Respect the stairs. Always do not rush the stairs altogether. Always utilize the handrail to connect and be in touch. Avoid carrying objectives when you are moving around. And if you are carrying objectives, do not carry heavy objectives which is beyond your control. Always keep your viewing angle very clear. It should be visible as to which all staircases you are climbing down. So, first and the foremost thing about any equipment that comes around it is all about inspections. Be ready if for any eventualities. If your equipment malfunction, you are going to bear the brunt of it. So, better be serious about what, how, when it was inspected, how is it working, what is the right way to utilize it, and so on and so forth. That is taken care of. Best practice is using the safety system provided properly. Your employer's effort to protect you from known hazard, only to protect you if you actually use them. Use them the right way, the only manner intended altogether. And I am, whatever I'm saying about being fall is being sober, not under any influences of any drug or intoxicants that you come around it. If you are aware, if you are aware of your surroundings, if you are on your toes, if you are completely in your senses, chances of falling down become slimmer. And in closing, what I would like to say about it, it is your supervisors, it is you who can prevent the unwanted things from happening altogether. Falls can take many form, absolutely, from the same level, from a different level, from other hazardous material into hazardous material. So remember to have any sort of training given an opportunities, the employer will be providing it with you. Always use personal protective equipment so that it helps you to arrest the side of fault and arrest the fall. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video.